Welcome back to my 100% playthrough of Heretic on the Black Plague Possesses the difficulty, played through the Heretic plus Hexen re-release on the Kex Engine. Today we are beginning the 5th episode of Heretic and the 2nd episode of the Shadow of the Serpent Riders expansion, The Stagnant Domain. And since they decided to use a thesaurus for the episode name as well as some of the level names, I feel obliged to once again explain the definitions and etymologies of some of these words. So, stagnant. I'm sure most of you know what that means, but it basically means to cease motion or progress, to not go forward. In some cases, in the case of like water or air, it can become foul if it's in a place and it stagnates. But usually it means to cease motion or progress, to cease development and whatnot. And that comes from the Latin word stagnatus, which is part of the Latin verb stagnare, which means to fill a body of water like a pool, usually. And that comes from stagnum, which means a pond or a swamp. And Italians might recognize this as stagnare in the modern Italian language. And domain is basically a synonym for domain. And this particular spelling comes from Norman French. Yes, you can blame the French again for this particular spelling. The orthography is the way it is because the S is there because it indicates that the E is a long vowel. So domain. And it comes from the same root as well as domain, like Dominicus and so on. And yeah, funny Norman shenanigans going on. But that's it for the episode name. I'm sure you know what a domain is. Like a land or a property, usually owned by a lord, but sometimes it's just a place in general that has some kind of rulership. Usually of a feudal variety, sometimes not. But anyways, that is the stagnant domain. The domain that is stagnant. Well, I have one more bit of an etymology lesson for you. That is for the first level's name, which we were going into, E5M1, Ochre Cliffs. Now, the word ochre, it is usually, even in American English, spelled with an R-E rather than an E-R. And it is a pale yellow color with an orange tint to it. Or orange is yellow. Either way, it is pale. And it comes from ancient Greek. And that word in ancient Greek would be something along the lines of ochra, with a ka, because it has the letter that is now represented in modern Greek as ch, as a word would be ochra in modern Greek, give or take. But yeah, it means the same thing. Now, with all that out of the way, we can properly begin. And I can tell you what's going on, because I'm using a Raven MIDI pack again, and the menus are green. Yes, I finally am using the update. Yes, the first update is out, and now we can play this level properly. And in fact, I'm re-recording this because there was an issue beforehand that prevented some things from happening. Anyways, I'm just going to grab the Gauntlets of the Necromancer, and yes, there are plenty of fire gargoyles out here. We're going to attack them, and perhaps any regular gargoyles that get in the path of our movement. You can get rid of the regular gargoyles too, if they're also in the way. But ideally, you want to make sure you get rid of all of them. But usually, you want to get rid of all the fire gargoyles first and foremost. So now that they're all out of the way, we can now focus our attacks on these enemies, like that one Nitro Golem, and once you get rid of that one Nitro Golem, we can focus fire on the Nitro Golems on the cliffs. The Ochre Cliffs, if you will. And what we're going to do is we're going to systematically purge all of the Nitro Golems from this area and create a sort of ethno-state for regular golems. So now that we have successfully created the ethno-state of golems, we can now take a moment to admire how they are just wandering aimlessly on these cliffs, these ochre cliffs. I'd say this looks pretty ochre. It's a bit more on the orange side if you ask me. But these ones, like in between, they look pretty ochre. It's pale yellow with orange. But anyways, now we've got all that suddenness out of the way, we can go into here. And as you can see, there are still plenty of Nitro Golems where that came from. But what we're going to do is grab the crossbow and immediately leg it. And you can hug one of the red openings down there to get some more undead warriors out. And what we're going to do with those undead warriors is we're going to bait them all out and fight them pretty much one at a time unless certain things happen. And I think it's finally time to get rid of the golems. Well, at least some of them that decide to climb down here. And as you can see, because there are also gargoyles that wake up, they can very easily get stuck on these undead warriors. And vice versa, which can potentially be a blessing for you, provided you're able to hit your shots while they're hanging out there. But even if you run out of ammo for your crossbow, which you shouldn't, unless you're like me and didn't pick that up, you should still be able to use the wand. Alright, so now you can grab everything in this area, and when you go to the extreme side again where you got the crossbow, these will raise and lower in the opposite of the order I just mentioned. But what you want to do is go up one of these, and I'm going to try to get up this. And there we go. Now we're up here, and the reason why I went up here in particular is so that I can place a time bomb right here. To blow up that one golem, get the drop on him. And you can alternate between using the time bombs, using the crossbow, or using the wand. You can use the gauntlets if you really want to. In fact, you might take less damage that way. Maybe not. No guarantees. Either way, you want to go into this side because it has a tome of power, some ethereal arrows. There's another way to get ambushed by a golem. Same with this part, but it's not that big of a deal. Because you can just fall back down here, and you can go up through here. And yes, there will be another golem ambushing you, but this one, you can just put a time bomb right here. Yeah, these guys aren't so tough. These ones in particular regarding a quiver of ethereal arrows, so you will not be wanting for ammo on this level. Or at least you shouldn't be. So make sure you grabbed everything. The silver shield and a torch on the other side, as well as a tome of power on that one side as well. And when you're ready, you can at last, using the yellow key, go into here. And I like to use the gauntlets because there are lots of ghostly golems here. Most of them are regular ghostly golems, but there's at least one or two ghostly nitro golems, maybe three in certain areas like here. One thing you want to watch out for is some of the golems will be hard to zap with the gauntlets. because sometimes they like to hug the block maps. But look, there's another Tome of Power. There are 3 Tomes of Power in this area. But if you want to immediately get something else, if you don't feel like zapping these guys, you can grab the Dragon Claw just by taking a right instead of taking a left. And take another right, and there you go. But since they're so generous with these Tomes of Power... you shouldn't be ashamed if you want to use any of them. Because there are plenty to go around. In fact, I might use one here very soon. Well, I'm going to save it for a certain encounter in a little bit. Anyways, around here are some extra ghostly nitro golems. They all came from this area. There's a total of 4, I believe. Maybe more. But once you actually enter this area near the button, it will turn dark. And if you want to see, you could use that torch again. But once you go up here to grab the Morphobum, you want to immediately exit. Or you could probably stay here if you're feeling bold. But here's where I'm going to use that Tome of Power. So I can bully this Iron Lich. And there are disciples around here as well, who you could also bully in a similar fashion, especially if they come anywhere near you. Because you should have plenty of ammo for that E5M1 at this point. You could use a Dragon Claw unpowered as well, but for the sake of using these Tomes of Power, something I need to do a little bit more just to have some more variety in combat, I suppose. I'm using the Tome here. Anyways, so once you've done all of that, you can go further up the cliffs. Which we're doing right now, to zap the rest of these golems. Alas, this now means that the Nitro Golem ethnostate has ended. It has fallen. Anyways, let's go into here and get rid of this Disciple of the Sparrow guarding a Chaos device. And when you do that, you'll raise a bridge. And you can press this button to raise this area, which we are going to do right now. And immediately when you do that, you want to go down into here, grab all this stuff. Because when you go into the area with the green key, this part of the waterfall lowers, and it leads to the only secret area. And fun fact, I re-recorded this video because of this area right here. Yeah, see where we can't go into? Yeah, that was counted as a secret sector before the patch. So they changed that, they fixed that, I should say. Something that wasn't an issue beforehand. And they also added another Tome of Power, which was right here. Very interesting. But anyways, now we've done all that, we can now go straight ahead over here. Even though we have the green key, we're just going to go here because there is a Hell Staff, which is very nice to have. And yes, we did wake up quite a number of undead warriors. We're going to go into this maze again because there's another area, and we're also going to wait for those undead warriors to fully emerge. And while they're doing that, we're going to bully these guys. And now we have the Fire Mace. And I don't know if you use the full screen HUD or not, but also, they fixed the Fire Mace sprite. Anyways, we're going here to get the blue key. When you try to do that, you get surprised, bamboozled even by these disciples. Since we have the Fire Mace, we might as well use it, powered up even, because I feel like destroying these guys, deleting them from existence. They give you Mace Spheres for it as well, so I don't see why not. If you're feeling extra confident, you could use that trusty Fire Mace to get rid of these undead warriors that are now up here. Yeah, like I said, they're all here. I'm gonna use all those Torch Flasks as well. Almost all of them. But yeah, that's where you get the blue key. And also in here, goes to the Undead Warriors. And it passes right through them. Isn't that weird? Well, nothing your trusty Hellstaff can't take care of. Or the Dragon Claw. We're going here just to get the Wings of Wrath. We'll probably need them. They'll make things easier, I reckon. And speaking of wings, we're gonna fly over here, get all this. Chicken! Just for the specific disciple. And we can't use it for this one, but still. Yeah, using the Wings of Wrath is the only way to get these power-ups and kill those enemies. But I believe that's almost everything in that area. And it should be everything there. I believe the final things are in these areas. And I'm going to use the Ring of Invincibility and the Shadow Spear for this next encounter, because when we drop down here, there'll be 2 Iron Liches on each side with a total of 4. So let's roast these guys. Man, you're just a floating skullhead. And so are you. And you want to know the interesting thing? In the original version of this level, there was a Molitar here. I think there were a few Iron Liches and a Molitar. And in this version, they do not have any of those here. You could probably also use this Time Bomb in the area with the Nitro Golems and the... in either spot, really. In the maze or the areas where there are lots of them guarding the yellow key. But anyways... yeah, you didn't use the extra Tome of Power. There are probably way too many of those in this level, if you ask me. But anyways, in order to exit the level, you have to press the button on that side. And you can use the teleporter to get back to here without risking going into the lava. And you can just strafe run into that area if you want. Makes things easier. And you can use the Chaos Device if you really want to. Go back to the start. Get all the scenery, grab any extra things if you're playing continuously. Stuff like that. Either way, that is E5M1, Ochre Cliffs. And yeah, as you can see, there are some changes, quite a few of them. They weren't super drastic. There will be more drastic ones later on throughout the episode. But the biggest changes were the issues with the secret area where you get the Phoenix Rod. Initially that was an issue, but they did fix it, which is very good. They fixed some other things as well, like blood textures in previous levels that I mentioned. They no longer damage you. It is now consistently a non-damaging texture, which is a very good change if you ask me. But, I mean, if they really want to reintroduce a texture that's, like, red and damages you, they could introduce the, like, sludge texture, make it red, and work with that. I reckon the palette should be able to work with that. Could make it a darker red, too. Or something along those lines. Either way, consistency is king when it comes to the textures in Heretic, at least for me. But anyways, one of the biggest changes that I'm not so sure of is they removed the Molitar from this level. But on one hand, it's like, was he really that much of a threat? Or was it because he was not much of a threat at all that they just yeeted him from the level? I'm not so sure. It's weird. But I guess it kind of does further trivialize this level. Although, once you get past the initial parts, this level isn't particularly difficult either way. Now, I'm a Black Plague Possesses Thee player, so your experiences with Smite Meister versions of these levels may vary. Especially if you're playing Spite Meister with like a fast parameter, and just playing that so you have the Black Plague difficulty without the ammo bonus. Which I've done before on this channel, by the way, in 2020. You could actually check that series out if you're really interested in that. But it was also with the Wayfarer's Tome mod. But even with vanilla weapons, it still manages to work out. But anyways, all that aside, I'm glad they adjusted the bugs in this level. I think there are maybe that extra tome of power that they added in the new update is probably a bit too much. Because, I mean, I've gone through this level with using only one. Yeah, just one. Because, I don't know. I guess it gives you an ability to finish this level faster, but it does seem like it trivialized some of the encounters considerably more so, but I don't know if it takes out the tedium, which, maybe it does. Comments go wild. Anyways, we are done with this video. Stay tuned for the next one where we're going to E5M2. And I believe, I will have recorded E5M2 before the update. Because there were no major changes. There were some changes in E5M3 as well. But, they're also so minute that with the way I play the level, it doesn't really matter. So I'll probably explain that in E5M9. But anyways, stay tuned for the next video where we're going to E5M2 Rapids. But until then, I'll see you when I see you. So see ya.